Today, we're going to dive into a concept from Buddhist philosophy that, I know, can sound a little strange at first, but stick with me because it's actually deeply connected to how our brains work, according to modern science. It's this idea of emptiness, and it's a tool that can literally change how you experience everything, from an annoying noise to your biggest anxieties.
So, where does this all start? Well, it often comes back to this famous, and let's be honest, famously confusing line from the Heart Sutra. Form is emptiness. What in the world could that possibly mean? To really get our heads around it, we actually need to look at an even older text.
So this ancient sutra is telling us that the world we see, the solid world of forms, tables, cars, even our own bodies, is somehow like a mirage. It says that things are without essence. And yeah, that can sound pretty out there, right? Like it's denying reality itself.
And hey, if you're sitting there thinking this sounds a little nuts, or maybe even kind of depressing, you are not alone. Those are super common reactions. The idea that the world isn't as solid as it feels can be really unsettling. But what if we're just looking at it the wrong way? What if modern science actually backs this ancient idea up? Okay, so let's just park the ancient text for a second and jump right into modern neuroscience. Because as it turns out, your brain is already treating the world like a mirage. In fact, it has no other choice.
Here's the key thing you gotta grasp. You don't just passively receive the world like a camera. Your brain is an active builder. It's constantly taking in little scraps of indirect evidence, like light particles and sound waves, and from that, it builds a story or a theory about what's out there.
Think about how you see, for example. The world out there is three-dimensional, right? But the information hitting your retinas is just two flat 2D images. So your brain has to perform this incredible trick of taking those two flat images, noticing the tiny differences, and then constructing a full 3D model. What you experience as sight isn't raw reality. It's your brain's best guess.
And here's the wild part. Sometimes that guess is wrong. This is exactly how things like 3D movies and optical illusions work. They trick your brain by exploiting the very shortcuts and assumptions it makes. It's the perfect proof that what we perceive isn't the real thing, but our brain's version of it.
Okay, so our brain constructs reality. That's a cool fact, but so what? How does knowing this actually help us in our daily lives? Well, let's look at this really powerful real-world example from a meditation retreat that shows just how practical this whole idea can be.
Let's start with a question you might be asking. When you're meditating, people say to just notice the sound of an airplane without labeling it airplane. What good does that actually do? It sounds kind of pointless, doesn't it?
So, at this retreat, there was construction going on nearby, and the sound of a buzzsaw was just constant. You know that sound, high-pitched, grating, and the first automatic reaction from everyone was exactly what you'd expect. It was annoying. It was a horrible noise that was ruining the peace and quiet.
But then, something amazing happened. By using mindfulness to just experience the raw sound waves, without the story of annoying construction attached to it, the perception completely flipped. The sound, now stripped of all that negative meaning, started to sound, well, almost musical. It had this graceful rise and fall.
I mean, the shift was so total, it's actually kind of funny. The experience changed so dramatically that the meditator found himself getting bored during the quiet moments, actually hoping the buzzsaw would start up again. The noise had genuinely become beautiful.
And that experience with the buzzsaw, that gets us right to the heart of what emptiness really means in a practical way. See, it's not about nothingness. It's not about denying reality. It's about something way, way more powerful. So here's the core insight. Emptiness doesn't mean the buzzsaw isn't real. Of course it's real. It means the annoyance of the buzzsaw is not an inherent quality of the sound itself. The annoyance, the badness, that's a story. It's a layer of meaning that we add on top of the raw sensory data. It's just like meditation teacher Narayan Liebenson says. The sound waves exist on their own, but everything we find meaningful about them, whether we label them good, bad, annoying, or beautiful, that comes from us. That meaning isn't actually in the sound waves. And this right here is the most important takeaway, because this whole principle doesn't just apply to things like buzzsaws. It applies to the huge, complex stories we tell ourselves about our jobs, our relationships, and who we are. Narratives that are often built on some really shaky ground.
Think about it. We do this all the time. We experience a single event, we immediately slap a label on it like bad, and then we build a massive story on top of that one little feeling. This was a huge mistake, which proves I'm always messing things up. We mistake our own judgment for some kind of absolute fact about the world.
So this is where a practice like mindfulness comes in as an incredibly powerful tool. It's like a diagnostic kit for your own thoughts.
It gives you that little bit of space to pause and actually examine the foundations of your stories. To ask yourself, is this feeling of badness really in the event itself, or is it a story I'm telling myself about the event?
So I'll just leave you with this to chew on. What stories are you telling yourself today? Are they built on solid ground? Or are they just a fabrication, a meaning that you've imposed onto reality? Because realizing you're the one holding the pen, that's the first step to being able to rewrite the whole script. Thanks for joining me.